I think it's okay to say that there was a moment of maybe death. But I'm still around.
Do we already know how Cyberpunk 2077's story will end? And have CD Projekt Red left the clues to the game's ending in plain sight? Like many of you, I've been soaking up as much information as I can about Cyberpunk 2077. I quickly realized that CD Projekt Red openly peppered clues as to the greatest story, and perhaps more surprisingly, it's actually not too difficult to then draw a logical outcome of the game's protagonist V and the mysterious Johnny Silverhand's quest and conclusion in the game.
And I'm part of their journey. But they're also a part of mine. So, we're gonna see what happens.
It's a story of love, rescuing a princess, and the age-old role-playing fun of choosing who to side with and ultimately be the savior of Night City, or instead become a long-remembered scourge of the people therein. So in this video, I'm going to explore the possible multiple endings to the game and why I strongly believe we may already know how Cyberpunk 2077 will end.
Turns out we've caught the attention of one of Night City's biggest players, Dexter Deshawn, a fixer, a person who gets things done. He wants to meet up and discuss a job.
Get in.
Let's see what he has for us.
First off, what do we know officially? The confirmed plot synopsis of Cyberpunk 2077 openly states, you play as V, a mercenary outlaw going after a one-of-a-kind implant that is the key to immortality. Now, breaking this down into sections, as immortality is a lofty concept, we know most of the official plot synopsis because we actually saw a large portion of the aforementioned plot transpire in the Cyberpunk 2077 official trailer, and the beats go as such. 1, we get direct confirmation of the events leading up to V and Jackie Wells' procurement of the one-of-a-kind implant, as seen when V is sent on a job to acquire the fabled implant or chip in a mission gone awry by fixer Dexter Deshawn during the trailer. And unfortunately, it's also confirmed V's brother-in-arms Jackie Wells loses his life for the fabled immortality chip, inextricably tying the chip's fate to V's.
I'm sorry.
After which, the second part is returning to Dex with said chip, who no doubt wanted to avoid heat brought down on him having such a valuable chip, opts to tie up loose ends regarding his involvement and instead betrays and shoots V, leaving him for dead in a junkyard. Until, mysteriously, the phantom of rocker boy Johnny Silverhand appears. So we know how we come to acquire the chip and now where it is, but the questions it leaves us with is why and how is this version of Johnny Silverhand inside the chip, and how is said chip reportedly able to hold the key to immortality? And is it immortality as we know it or something completely different? As we explore these answers, we now have a strong motive as to all parties being involved, with V vying for a chip that is tied to immortality. And of course, now that we know the MacGuffin of the story, we should naturally be able to discern answers to Cyberpunk 2077's plot and ending. However, before we tackle the lofty question of immortality and the key players, the first, somewhat easier question to answer is, how did Johnny end up chipping in? Like his hit song, literally.
Ever heard of Johnny Silverhand, a rebel rocker boy who will be your companion throughout your adventure in Night City?
As stated in the official Cyberpunk Deep Dive released in 2019, Johnny is confirmed to be a digital ghost that has somehow taken up residence within V's cybernetics in their head.
You'll see glimpses of Johnny Silverhand, the digital construct who haunts our main character, V.
But who is Johnny Silverhand, and what is his significance to the universe of Cyberpunk before he became a digital ghost? Johnny Silverhand is a legendary rocker boy who rose to prominence around the time of Cyberpunk 2020. A rocker boy is a rebellious musician who uses their charisma, spoken word, and in Johnny's case, the power of rock, to spread anti-establishment messages.
Come on, really think they give a rat's dick how you look?
And Johnny was most notably a member of the band Samurai, whose influence is still seen some 50-odd years later during the events of Cyberpunk 2077. Johnny's unfortunate downfall began when he was walking with his then-girlfriend and netrunner, Alt Cunningham, who was targeted and kidnapped by Arasaka Corp thugs. Johnny later learned of Alt's location and put together a daring rescue with a strike team consisting of his fellow Samurai band members to infiltrate the Arasaka Corp building in Night City and save his girlfriend. However, when they arrived, they were too late. Alt was found dead, and waiting for Johnny instead was a Borg named Adam Smasher. As an aside, a Borg is someone who was once man, but is now more machine than flesh, and unfortunately, as we will discuss later in the video, the more flesh you give up, the more likely you are to lose your sanity. Otherwise, Night City would probably be full of Terminator-esque killing machines, which is just what battling Adam Smasher was probably like. And unfortunately for Johnny, legend has it Adam Smasher gunned down Silverhand on top of the building. But his body was never found though, because Militech, a company also fighting against Arasaka, launched their attack at the same time. They dropped a bomb on the Arasaka building and nothing was left to find. So of course the question remains, how do we then see Johnny's ghost in 2077?
And that chip in your head, the one thanks to which Johnny lives inside your mind. Well, that's a story for another time.
We saw a bit of a teaser in regards to a little-known character known as Alt Cunningham, who those who play the 2020 tabletop will know was Silverhand's girlfriend and a legendary hacker. So there's going to be a lot of interplay there we can expect.
There might be.
So we know how Johnny died, and presumably his body was eviscerated in the blast. But how did he return? Well, it was actually all tied to why. Originally, his netrunner girlfriend, Alt Cunningham, was kidnapped by Arasaka Corp in the first place. Alt herself was targeted by Arasaka directly, as she was a god-tier hacker / netrunner and had miraculously made a discovery they sought to exploit. Now, paraphrasing the Cyberpunk 2020 rulebook directly, there was a program created by Alt Cunningham called Soulkiller. It started as a matrix to contain artificial personalities, but then Alt realized she could transfer living people's personalities from computer to body and even back again. It was immortality. Let me say that again. Alt found the key to immortality. So now we have a confirmation of who created the key to everlasting life, albeit cyberpunk style. However, it came with a cost. After Saburo Arasaka kidnapped Alt and extracted the information from her about the invaluable soulkiller, they did what most corporations do and bastardized it, making a more deadly version which they used to interrogate somebody's mind and would rip out all the information and burning out the user's body during the transfer. To test their version, they even used it on Alt since she was no further use to them, killing her in the process. Hence why when Johnny went to save Alt, her body reportedly all he found was a husk. What he may not have known is her digital ghost that was ripped out successfully broke free into the net. So it makes sense that at some point before, during, or after Johnny's fateful duel atop Arasaka's building with Adam Smasher, he too had his digital ghost uploaded, but not free in the net. Instead, he was confined to a chip, waiting to be freed for 50 plus years until he finally meets V in Cyberpunk 2077. So we have a strong idea of the ABC of Johnny's journey, but where does Alt's digital ghost now reside if it was loosed into the net?
Ghost in the shell.
The original cyberspace still exists behind the black wall.
If you imagine Alt Cunningham as a program in the net, still able to be tracked and or deleted, then her best bet would to be go where no living person has gone and returned before, behind the black wall. And we have proof of her location and how it ties to past official press releases by CD Projekt Red. In the Cyberpunk 2077 gameplay demo, we first had a glimpse at the deeper virtual world accessible to the player in the game. This world differs from the local area networks accessed. The reason that Cyberpunk's virtual world isn't one constant worldwide web is due to a major event in the world's lore prior to Cyberpunk 2077. According to Mateusz Tomaskevich, in a recent interview with Yong Yi, between the events of Cyberpunk 2020 and 2077, there was a catastrophic event where a legendary netrunner, aka hacker, released a world-breaking amount of malware and rogue artificial intelligence into the web as we know it. However, this basically created worldwide chaos as it infected the entire system. But what does a government body do when the internet, as we know it, a core fabric of societal function and information repository, is fundamentally broken, corrupted, and made dangerous for users worldwide? Well, they try and build a wall and stuff the malware and rogue AI behind it.
The wall just got 10 feet higher.
The blackwall is a virtual wall built and said to keep the free AIs from breaking through into the rest of the virtual world and wreaking havoc, possibly causing the end of the world along with it. As we've seen the Voodoo Boys wishing to tear down the wall and unleash whatever's behind it, in conjunction with humans not able to cross into the black wall and survive, this is where Alt Cunningham's safe haven lies. And Johnny, upon re-emerging, no doubt would want us, the player, to retrieve her from it. But there's a catch. It would require a legendary hacker to even attempt such a feat, and even then, survival is not guaranteed. But one person who has been confirmed to want to cross into the unknown has already crossed V's path in gameplay trailers. Enter Sandra Dorsett.
So it's kind of a mystery throughout the world.
Will we be going beyond and seeing what's on the other side?
Well, you'll have to play to learn that.
Sandra Dorsett, NC 570442. Got a winner. Or she will be if we can get her to a hospital.
Sandra Dorsett is a character players must help rescue in the quest Breaking Through. She's been captured by scavengers and a locator beacon is turned off. Together with Jackie Wells and T-Bug, players infiltrate the scavenger base to find her with unknown injuries floating in an ice-filled tub.
Layout shows only one room left, the bathroom. Go.
Sure hope our target's in there.
At which point, as she has a platinum membership, which allows her top-tier medical help, Trauma Team International swoops in to collect her.
Place the patient on the stretcher.
Not much else is known about her, except CD Projekt Red have peppered secret code and messages across all manner of media for fans to uncover. Recently on a Discord server, a mysterious netrunner known as Sandra D, aka Sandra Dorsett, was leaking intel and was actively discussing trying to free Alt Cunningham, which, as we know as well, with our trip to Nanette with the Voodoo Boys, when you're in a bathtub full of ice, it stops your body from frying. My prediction is then we see this as a blunder later in the game, which means we'll probably end up saving Sandra Dorsett, who will be instrumental as a netrunner, able to help our objective of helping Johnny breach the Black Wall in the main quest line.
Because in 2077, you get a chance to see that not every gang is the same as every other gang, and what motivates them depends on the people you meet on the street.
So, as we now have the main plotline and players involved, let's do a quick recap before talking about the potential multiple endings of the game. First, we know that the implant holds the key to immortality. Second, that it also contains Johnny Silverhand's ghost. Third, it was Alt Cunningham, Johnny's girlfriend, who created the program before she and Johnny were killed, at least their bodies, and then it was used to upload their consciousness. And finally, that Alt is behind the Black Wall, and hacker Sandra Dorsett is her best bet as she's looking to free her. So now we know all of the players and their motivations, let's explore the possible outcomes of the key characters and factions in the game if they were to be in possession of an immortality chip. And before anyone says, well, we're just going to help Johnny, he's living in our head, CD Projekt Red know the cornerstone of great RPGs is choice, and so directly tackle this, saying,
Like everyone in Cyberpunk 2077, he has his own agenda. You'll decide if he'll be your ally or your enemy.
Now, with all that being said, and for simplicity's sake, let's explore at least 3 core endings which I believe the game will cleverly mirror our 3 available origin stories. The first being the street savior route. Being a street savior aligns with a few factions, and the first and clearest is the rocker boy, Johnny Silverhand. It's easy to see that if Johnny's last actions in life were to sacrifice himself to save his girlfriend, Alt Cunningham, he will most probably look to do the same even in undeath as a digital ghost. If reunited, whether or not they look to live virtually together behind the black wall or instead find bodies, or even, in a very rocker way, tear down the wall for a more chaotic and free net remains to be seen. 2. What if we helped the Voodoo Boys? The Voodoo Boys are also aligned with Johnny's goals. They've been vying to tear down the Black Wall as they have an almost religious fanaticism believing that whatever is behind the wall is the world's savior. However, they've never been behind there, and according to CD Projekt Red, whatever is behind there may have a sentience. It may be in some form of Skynet that wants to take control of the greater web and kill off humanity. It may be a peace-loving entity that spreads benevolence and brings a new transcendent understanding to peoples across the world, or it may even be a Lovecraftian horror show waiting to be unleashed. Like any good RPG, sometimes trying to help supplant the status quo can have catastrophic results. And if you think, wait, Lovecraftian type AI, well, where do you think I got the idea from?
So it's this mysterious place, like I like to think about it as this Lovecraftian kind of thing, like this different dimension where the rogue AIs do their own thing.
Cyberpunk Lovecraftian, interesting.
Exactly, and they develop themselves unchecked, basically, because the Netwatch doesn't actually control what happens there.
What if we side with the corpo groups? It's pretty self-evident, with groups holding a tenuous monopoly over a people's, and in the infamous words of Emperor Palpatine,
all who gain power are afraid to lose it.
I believe Netwatch's motives, or any corpos, are most clear-cut. One, you want to undermine the Voodoo Boys as they're trying to tear down the Black Wall to maintain control, or perhaps use some type of countercode to neutralize what is behind it. The second is maybe somebody with power wants to prolong their life, so they're trying to find the chip at all costs, hiring Dexter Deshawn to source it so that they can have a monopoly. Or perhaps as they could put people's brains into cyber bodies, create some type of unstoppable police force or army. They may actually do more good or believe that they are maintaining order, or perhaps they just offer the untold wealth and riches. I mean, after all, corpos are the new royalty in Night City, and everybody wants a piece.
See how this works now? Only the Corp gets what it wants. Remember that. Learn it. A couple years down the line, you'll be standing where I am, watching somebody else doing...
Yep. Being a raging bitch to whoever's doing my dirty work for me.
The third, nomad route, is perhaps the least spoken of, and because there's not much evidence that goes towards what the nomads want. However, what we know is nomads are outcasts living in the barren wastes outside of Night City, and they are largely malicious, living off the scraps in a Mad Max-esque dust bowl. Now, what do outcasts usually want? Well, if we look at Mad Max or even Demolition Man, it's usually to do with control or at least an equal share of resources and opportunity. The second route, and my personal favorite, would be the Escape from LA ending. At the culmination of Escape from LA, when given a choice to help the citizens of the States or its enemies, Snake Plissken famously, instead of helping Uncle Sam, opts to level the playing field worldwide entirely by detonating an EMP and essentially sending everyone indiscriminately back to the Stone Age.
You push that button. Everything we've accomplished for the past 500 years will be finished. For God's sakes, don't do it, Snake! My name's Plissken.
For a nomad, you can imagine that would seem pretty fitting, as they would be right at home in that dominance hierarchy at the top of a dust bowl. Now, with all that being said, this is still speculation, and I admit there are a couple of solid threads and things that are confirmed that we are pulling out from a larger woven story, but maybe I've missed something poignant. I love theorizing, so let me know in the comments or on social media linked, or perhaps Discord, where we have a community talking lore on the regular. Can't wait to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Traveler.